From the caves. That would be the perfect description for the sound of these Chileans, whose name is practically unpronounceable for a Portuguese boy like me. The ambience they recreate is fantastic and may at first put off those who like more melodic stuff, but if you give it the chance, you'll be able to detect fantastic nuances and an ability to go far beyond the one-dimensionality that prejudice expects to find. Cavernous dirt has never been so attractive. It's often said that the second album is much more complicated than the first, especially if the first one had a good impact. 4 years after their debut, A Burial at Sea brings us a post-rock album that won't surprise those who wanted it to, but will appeal to those who like the best elements of the genre. The arrangements are fantastic, especially when they take on an orchestral dimension. But then there are also details that are subtle in the way they approach something more mathematical, even jazzy, with a jazzy feel. In the end, there's no denying that this is yet another post-rock record, but it's definitely one that has so many subtleties that if you focus on them, the interest becomes practically inexhaustible. This is the second album by Finnish band Hollow Woods, who bring us primitive and raw black metal. By now we already have an idea of the band's sound, and it was with this idea, preconceived, that we approached this album, which ended up surprising us in an extremely positive way. Although statistically the sound fits into the well-worn formula of the second wave of black metal, the way they do it and the resulting song form is admirable. Melancholy without being depressive black metal, a memorable sense of melody but far from approaching melodic black metal, and an album that you will return to many more times in the future. From the first notes of Swords of Taja we are completely hooked. The subtlety for what is expected of a black death metal record of those first moments are like a foretaste of the plunge into the immensity of blackness in which we are about to dive. A foreshadowing that, despite seeming one-dimensional, offers a scope that makes their music even more dynamic. A record that is incapable of making us lose focus and manages to keep the listener coming back for more. The third album by the Brazilian duo known as Litosth may come as a surprise to many. For one thing, it has a very European and even slightly nostalgic sound that reminds us of the golden age of melodic black and death metal in the 90s. Then, it manages to bypass the most obvious commonplaces, above all by fusing both genres into a proposal that sounds cohesive and powerful. And contrary to what you might think, it's not something that leaves you stuck in the past in a specific era, but manages to divert your focus to what you're listening to here and now. Melody, melancholy and heaviness in an album that will surprise many fans of extreme music with melodic contours. First contact with the sound of Londoners Stray the band, who make up for the impact of their strange name in a fantastic way. This is for those who appreciate the mix between doom and stoner with a very organic feel and an almost psychedelic effect on the listener with some post-punk touches. Nothing new, you might think. It depends on your perspective, because if the aforementioned description puts you in the state of expectation for music that sacrifices dynamics in favor of repetition in order to achieve some hypnotic state, That's not at all what you get here. And we don't miss that hypnotic state, but the songs are far from sounding forced. There's a fantastic classic groove, although the classics have never sounded like this. An ambience that grabs you at first without any shame and doesn't let go. If a band starts their discography like this, we can only imagine what it will be like afterwards. Denmark's Night Fever couldn't be back in better form. Their third album comes after a 10-year absence, and it's clear that the band is full of hunger and energy to make up for the lost time. With a healthy mix of hardcore and rock and roll punk that results in a sound that is as corrosive as it is addictive, this album is short and furious and guarantees our interest throughout its duration. I've said this several times around here, but there's nothing better than being presented with something that has a formula we know well and still being completely taken in. That's the case with this album by the Spaniards In Vain. You wouldn't expect a surprise from their sixth album, but the band has managed to present a set of high-quality heavy power metal songs that not only showcase the talent they have been displaying since the start of their career, but also take us back to a time when power metal, especially this more muscular and typically North American kind, was wowing the metal world. Perhaps their best album yet. A journey into our deepest feelings, that might be the one way to describing what's going on here, although musically it leaves you at exactly the same point as far as information is concerned. Clueless. We could talk about post-metal or names like Gaia or Der Einer Freiheit or even Cult of Luna if they had a more black metal approach, but the important thing to retain here is the way this set of songs sounds original, powerful, exciting and absolutely addictive. The revelation of the month. It will come as no surprise that Toxikull are in this top ranking or that they are our pick for the album of the month. Yes, we are not unbiased in this assessment, but taking advantage of this wave of sincerity, I have to say that I am not unbiased in any assessment, whatever it may be. When we are talking about music, there are always two elements to take in consideration, among many others, in our reviews: whether we like the music, and separately, whether we can appreciate its quality in terms of composition, production, and even the evolution of the band's career. In other words, whether we like to be surprised or have proposals that bring us a familiar feeling. Under the Southern Light fulfills all these points perfectly. It doesn't surprise us because it's still the perfect blend of speed and traditional heavy metal, without choosing one of the characteristics. But at the same time, it demonstrates a maturity that shows there's a lot more good music to come from the Portuguese quartet. The quality starts with the production, the playing, and of course the music itself. Excellent songs. Of course, there's always a nostalgia factor that legitimizes the fact that this kind of music isn't as sought after as it was decades ago. All we can say about that is music lives forever regardless of its popularity, and Toxikull have not only upped their game, but also their competition with their best album to date, but one that also demonstrates that the best is yet to come.